There are a lot of reasons to have stomach pains, like trapped wind, food poisoning, food allergies, etc. However, the reason may be a monster that lives inside of you from the moment of your birth. Welcome back, guys. It's Motion Recaps again, and today we're covering the 2013 horror comedy, Bad Milo. Get ready for some spoilers. Here we go. A man is living a really stressful life. He has serious stomach pains that get worse each time he gets stressed. He goes to see a doctor, and he finds out that there's something in his stomach. That night, the man has an intense session on the toilet, and he passes out. The next day, he sees a psychiatrist who hypnotizes him to find the source of his anger. But the psychiatrist finds something more when a little monster comes out of the man's rear end and attacks him. But hold on a moment before I continue on with this recap. Take a moment right now to make sure you subscribe to this channel, that you've liked this video, and you hit that bell icon to be notified of when we have some more movie recaps ready for you to enjoy. But right now, let's enjoy Bad Milo. The movie continues on as we travel 5 days into the recent past. Duncan has an appointment with a gastroenterologist after experiencing a severe level of gastric stress the night before. The doctor and the nurse spot a large polyp in his intestinal tract. After the exam, the doctor gets shocked when he finds out the average time that Duncan spends on the toilet is 90 minutes. The doctor explains to Duncan that they'll try to remove the polyp with surgery, and that he needs to do his best to avoid any stress. Duncan then goes to work only to find from his boss that his new job is to fire employees, and that his new office is in the bathroom. To make matters worse, his boss gives him a really unprofessional and clumsy assistant named Alistair. Duncan then goes to see his new psychiatrist named Highsmith, and reveals to him that he will only see him because it's Sarah's wish. Highsmith tells Duncan that he wants to hypnotize him to help him, but Duncan refuses and leaves. That night, Duncan and Sarah have dinner with Duncan's mother, Beatrice, and her new husband, Bobby. However, Bobby is the same age as Duncan, and that really creeps Duncan out. Things get even worse for him when Beatrice and Bobby share one lustful kiss. Then Beatrice tells Duncan and Sarah that she knows that they're trying to have kids, but that it won't work. Duncan and Sarah try to explain to her that it's not true, but it's too late because Beatrice already called a doctor named Yip to come and have a talk with Duncan. The doctor shows up, and he immediately starts talking with Duncan about erectile dysfunction. Duncan is unable to explain that he doesn't have it, and the dinner turns into a nightmare. Soon he and Sarah get back home. Duncan gets a call from Alistair, who tells him that he accidentally deleted a project on which Duncan had worked on for an entire year. Duncan then immediately goes to the toilet. Sarah checks him to see how long he'll be inside, and he tells her to go to sleep because it's going to take him a long time. Sarah then takes a sleeping pill, and then she puts on earbuds for a better sleep. Duncan is fighting for his life on the toilet, and he's screaming in agony. He passes out because of all the pain and pushing. Then something comes out of his anus, and it ventures around the city before getting into Duncan's office and killing Alistair. The next morning, Duncan wakes up on the bathroom floor, and he's shocked when he sees on TV that Alistair is dead. Duncan goes to work, and his boss is not stressed at all because of Alistair's death. Also, everyone thinks that a wild raccoon killed him. Duncan then fires a bunch of employees while trying to be as nice as possible. After work, he goes to get his polyp removed. The doctor starts checking Duncan, and he sees something inside of his intestinal tract. Suddenly, that something pulls the doctor in and eats his entire face. Duncan wakes up, relieved because it was only a nightmare. The next day, Duncan goes to therapy. Highsmith convinces him that he'll be able to help him after he hypnotizes him. Duncan agrees, and he allows Highsmith to do his hypnosis thing. Soon, Highsmith finds out that Duncan is not in good relations with his father. Highsmith continues to question Duncan about his father, and that stresses Duncan so much that a 2-foot-tall creature comes out of his butt. Highsmith immediately grabs a spear for self-defense, and the creature attacks and bites him. Duncan wakes up, and everyone starts screaming from the top of their lungs. The creature then escapes into the night. Highsmith immediately pulls out some old book about mythology, and he explains to Duncan that the creature is a living manifestation of his life stress built up over time. He also explains to Duncan that the best way to eliminate it is to bond with it so that it doesn't act so irrationally. Because if Duncan kills the creature, he'll lose a part of himself, and he will become a zombie. In one dark alley, Dr. Yip is giving an oral session to a prostitute. When he finishes, he tells her that it's her turn, but she tells him that she doesn't like to do that, and she leaves. Dr. Yip then decides to finish himself off, but he stops when he hears some weird noises. He thinks that the prostitute changed her mind, but he's wrong. The creature attacks him, and it bites off his penis before slaughtering him brutally. Then, the creature returns to the psychiatrist's office, and Highsmith reminds Duncan that he needs to bond with it. Duncan slowly approaches the creature, who is hiding behind the curtains, and he assures it that he will not hurt it. He names it Milo, and Highsmith is really proud of their bonding process. Highsmith then tells Duncan that Milo wants to get back into his home. Duncan then takes his pants off, and Milo crawls back in. Highsmith advises Duncan to do his best to learn how to control his anger and how to relax. Duncan then gets back home to Sarah. The next day, he arrives at work, only to find that someone stole all the money from his client's bank account. He tells that to his boss, who orders him to transfer the money from his colleague's pension fund to the client's account. Duncan reminds him that it's not a legal thing to do, but the boss doesn't care at all, and he assures Duncan that they'll get away with it when they find out who stole the money. Duncan then visits Highsmith. The psychiatrist uses his puppet technique to find the source of Duncan's stress, and he figures out that it's coming from his father. Duncan then goes to search for his father at the last known location he lived. There, he finds him blazing in a tent. Duncan tries to communicate normally with him, but his father's just repeating some quotes about controlling anger. That gets Duncan angry, and he feels that Milo wants to come out. He quickly goes to an outhouse. Milo comes out, and Duncan does his very best to calm down his little friend, who is really angry. The situation escalates, and Milo attacks Duncan. The two of them fight, and Duncan manages to convince Milo to return to his home. Duncan gets out of the outhouse covered in blood and feces, and he asks his father if he can have a therapy session together. The father refuses and tells him that he just can't. Duncan gets to work all messed up, and he sees some weird guys, but he doesn't pay attention to them because Milo is really hungry. Duncan goes to his office, takes his pet rat, and feeds Milo with it. Then, his colleague comes in, and she tells him that the FBI is there and that he needs to come out. Duncan gets out of his office, and he sees a bunch of feds walking around, telling everyone to move away from their computers. Duncan finds his boss trying to flee, and he asks him what happened. The boss explains to him that someone stole all the money from the workers' pension fund and all of their other savings. Duncan quickly finds out through the conversation that his boss is involved in that shady act. Duncan gets angry, and he lets Milo out. The little guy kills Duncan's boss, and Duncan then calls the police to inform them that there's been yet another raccoon attack. Duncan then gets back to his wife, and he tells her that all of their savings and his pension fund are gone. And then Sarah tells him that she's pregnant. And then Duncan gets all confused because of all the emotions he's feeling, and he leaves. Duncan goes to a motel, where he spends a good amount of time there bonding with Milo. Their friendship really grows. After some time, Duncan calls his dad, and the two of them make a deal to have a therapy session together. They visit Highsmith, and the therapy session starts really well at first. Duncan tells him about the job and that Sarah is pregnant. However, the situation quickly goes downhill as Duncan's dad tries to explain to him that he left to protect him. Duncan gets angry and he feels that Milo wants to come out. Suddenly, his dad starts acting the same as him. Milo comes out, and a creature just like him comes out from Duncan's father's butt. The creature looks really old and weak. The two of them begin to fight, and Milo kills the other creature. The part of Duncan's dad dies together with the creature, and Duncan now knows why his father left. Duncan has a talk with his dad, and Milo overhears that Sarah is pregnant. Because of that, he goes into berserk mode and jumps out the window. Highsmith tells Duncan to follow him and that he'll take care of Duncan's dad. At that time, Sarah is at Beatrice and Bobby's house attending a party. Duncan chases Milo through the streets, and we're back at the beginning of the movie, as Duncan enters his mother's house and tells Sarah to go into the basement. Beatrice manages to escape outside, where she informs the others of what happened, and everyone gets armed with tiki torches. Duncan tries to convince Milo to not attack Sarah, but Milo doesn't pay any attention to his words at all, and he jumps into a sink pipe. Sarah is in the basement, where she finds out that Beatrice and Bobby use it as a BDSM dungeon, and it's full of kinky stuff. Milo shows up, and Sarah tries to repel it by throwing dildos at it, but that doesn't work, and Milo jumps on her. He slices her belly, and his eyes are full of hate towards this unborn baby. Duncan manages to break into the basement with an axe, and save Sarah. He grabs Milo, and he holds him while Sarah escapes outside. However, soon Milo manages to free himself from Duncan's grasp, and he follows Sarah. To Sarah's luck, people manage to keep Milo away from her with the tiki torches. Duncan shows up with the axe. He then attacks Milo, and he cuts off his legs and one arm off. Despite almost killing him, Duncan shows Milo that he still cares about him and he loves him. Sarah gives him her scarf to wrap Milo. Then Beatrice apologizes to Duncan for never telling him about the creature that his dad had, thinking that it wasn't hereditary. Duncan goes with Sarah to the bathroom, and she helps him get Milo back home. Then, we see that Duncan has opened up his own company, and that he's doing really well. His life changed for the better. He and Sarah have a gender reveal party, and everyone is there, including Duncan's dad and Highsmith, who gives the couple an old dagger that's been blessed by a monk. The best gift if you ask me. Then the movie ends as we find out that there's a creature in the stomach of Duncan's unborn son. And there you have it, a movie about a monster that comes out of your butt. Tell me what you thought of Bad Milo. Go ahead and do that in the comment section, and don't worry, our feelings won't be hurt. Thanks for watching another Motion Recaps, and I'll see you next time, my friends.